Ladies and gentlemen, this is Eddie Marcus again, spokesman and advocate of basic human rights for all people. That basically means that I want for you what you want for yourselves. And I know that's all good. But I'm also a social scientist, which means I study people, places, and things and times for the sole purpose of understanding how civilizations act, what it takes for to cause some to act certain other ways. I'm not dealing with the mind per se, but after the mind has responded into an act, and as a social scientist, I can work with that. And I'm going to talk to you on the struggle to end war. I was doing some research, nothing that I haven't done before, but I just wanted to get more of a basic understanding of the recent events that could help me be able to help you in understanding the struggle to end war, or if there is a struggle. And what I have determined is that there are two real reasons that we as people will agree on that are responsible for war. One is an effort to acquire things that would make your life better or make the life of people better. Stuff like land, resources that are treated as valuable, food, housing, all of these things that we as people need. When you don't have them, if nations don't have them, they will try to fight, if need be, to acquire them. That's the number one reason for war. The next reason for war is to protect what you got. You don't want anyone coming taking what you got, regardless of what they might not have. And so you defend it. There are occasions where people might have to fight to get and fight to defend all at the same time, as we can see in some of the wars that are being fought over terrorism. But here, I want you to understand that there's a spirit that causes people to engage in battle, fighting. And that spirit is the same spirit that causes crime and violence throughout our towns and cities and in our families and homes. You see, since time has allowed human beings to exist on the planet, we would say that there are billions of people who have been killed in war. Likewise, there have been and are billions of people who have been jailed and imprisoned for the crime and violence that they have committed in relationship to the same reasons for war. But now, where did this spirit come from? I will use the story of the Bible, because most Americans have had some experience with the Bible. But I'm not going to use the language of the Bible, because you cannot understand what you cannot understand. But you can understand the language that you use. And this is the language that I'll use. You see, Adam and Eve, as it were, is the foundation of this. I'm not trying to say that Adam and Eve were the first human beings on the earth, though the Bible says they were. I'm going to use Adam and Eve. Adam and Eve, living here, having the same desires, basically, for survival, and they complemented one another in this effort, and they indeed were one. What they did, it embraced the actions of the other. And the fruit of this action was love. But like all human beings who have been given choice, there is a spirit of anti-cooperation that rests in each of us. It has been given to us from creation so that we will have choice. If we didn't have the ability to go otherwise, then we would be as robots. So, since we've had the ability to astray, we have strayed. And here it happened with Adam and Eve in this garden, a garden of paradise, where anything can happen. But they were given instructions about something that they didn't want to happen. Now, so you can understand this because you share this in your daily family lives, and I'm going to use this example. A husband and a wife, Adam and Eve. When husband and wives come together, usually they have love and affection, and they have some dream of procreating, having some offspring that represents the two of them. Adam and Eve had the same to represent the two of them. Now the Bible says that Adam and Eve had two children, Cain and Abel. But if I told you my mother had 5 boys and left it there, you could go off and assume that my mother only had 5 kids. You would be wrong. My mother had 10 because she had 5 girls as well. So just because it was left out doesn't mean it didn't happen. So I am going to include the possibilities that in this relationship with Adam and Eve, they had other children. But what happened with Adam and Eve to sidetrack them? They say this tree, this apple. Well, I'm not going to use a tree and apple. I'm going to use sex. Adam and Eve had a wonderful sexual life. But when you have this seed embedded in you, which just dares to stray, that means there's going to be some animosity somewhere in this group. And for this sexual purpose and not taking so much of your time, I'm going to go straight to it. Eve, and I'm using Eve because they used Eve first in the Bible. It might not have been Eve, but it doesn't matter whether it was Eve or Adam. One of them found out, just like most of you found out as you were growing up, that there was something called masturbation. You learned it. I don't know where you got it from, but somebody told you about it. You tried it. Masturbation. And when you tried the masturbation, you were satisfied that this was a good thing, and you were glad that you could do it, that you had discovered it, or that you had been introduced. And the wonderful thing about knowing something is that you get a chance to share it with someone else. So if one spouse knows about it, somewhere down the line they're going to share it with the other. And now you got two people who are not just having sex with each other, but can have sex with themselves. And when they are at odds with themselves, they don't have this desire to just come together and have sex. Let sex bring them back together. Why? Because they can have sex on their own. And they can stay at odds with each other. And this Cain and Abel happened to be children of this relationship who were drawn to separate parents. One to the father, one to the mother. Why? Because of the way they were treated by the mother, by the father. Father catered to one, that son went to the father. Mother catered to the other, that son went to the mother. But that same spirit that kept the mother and father divided now has manifested itself in the way that the children are treated. They are divided. They have no real understanding about the oneness of the family because of the way their mother and father act. To make a long story short, somewhere down the line, one killed the other. Killed them. Why? Because of dissatisfaction in the way they were treated. Dissatisfaction. War. War. One wanting what they could not get. Why they couldn't get it? Because the mother and the father were at odds with each other and they could not come up with a way that would bless them each. And they do like we do. We put everything in God's hand. God said. God said. When the truth of it is, you said. Now, we have Adam and Eve. And you know, a lot of people love to say that the Bible doesn't know what it's talking about. because Cain, having killed Abel, went somewhere and married someone. And the only point I want to make here is that this is the creation of a continued population that is expressive of this new spirit of selfishness. That's all it is, the spirit of selfishness. And all over the world, wars are going on because of that same spirit of selfishness. But the reason that I come to you today is to tell you this. I want to say that God said, but I'm not going to bank it on God said. I am going to say that I say. And for me, I'm satisfied with the spirit of love and the spirit of humbleness and godliness is what's moving inside of me. But many of you might argue, and for those of you who want to argue that, then I'll tell you it's the spirit of me. I didn't make myself, but the spirit of me is saying this. It is saying this, that everything that the whole garden that Adam and Eve lived in, was not prepared by Adam and Eve. It was prepared by the maker of Adam and Eve. All of the things that could happen in the garden, in paradise, in heaven, designed by the maker and Adam and Eve. And all we have to do is learn to be in harmony with that spirit, to be one with one another. In fact, the laws of the Spirit says that you should honor the Father with all your heart, body, soul, and mind. And second commandment is that you should treat other people, like you want to be treated. Treat other people like you want to be treated. Those things that are coming amongst us that everybody needs, and all of the resources are available that would make it possible for those needs to be met. It is the duty of the mind of God that is supposed to be dwelling in you to see that this is carried out. But it isn't. And so we get war. We get lying, cheating, stealing, and killing, and crime, and violence, and death, and prisons, and jails all overflowing. Poverty. All because we don't want to treat people like we want to be treated. Now, Adam didn't have to, or should I say the spouse who was introduced through a desire, a thought to exercise masturbation. The other one didn't have to listen and follow suit. Or when he got or she got the thought on their own, they didn't have to follow because they already had a mechanism. That drive to be different, to be separate and better than somebody else is what leads us to go that extra mile in dumbness. So here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to tell you something that you might know and might not. The spirit of love, the spirit of God, requires that in order to be expressive of one who have been rejuvenated, one who have experienced and have chosen to do the will of the Father, is one that acts according to it. They don't say it. They don't go singing songs, kneeling on their knees and praying, confessing with their mouths and telling everybody that they believe that Jesus Christ is the Son of God. No. They act like the Son of God, the daughter of God themselves. They do not partake in that which is an expression of selfishness. They do not participate. And even though they're in a system that requires that if you're going to survive, say like capitalism, you better get on board. God says no. The Spirit of truth says no. Don't get on board. Somewhere the truth must be known, and the truth can only be shown by those who live it. And yes, you know and I know that when you know the truth and live by the truth, you are killed. You are killed. And that is the way that every Christian, everybody who is born again, everybody who loves God is supposed to be killed for doing good, for doing right. You're supposed to be killed, especially in the middle of hell. What God loving person wants to live in hell and chooses it because they're afraid to die. And here we go. In this world, in the society in which we live, men have discovered that everybody wants to live because they don't know the truth. And so one of the greatest threats that they hold over your head is killing you. That's why war goes on, to kill. To kill. Jails and prisons, to mess up your life, to intervene and take away the liberties. But that can only happen to those who are blind and afraid. Today, if a man wants to commit suicide, the police will come and the man can have a gun to his head. They will try to talk him down to put that gun down. But if they find that they can't talk him down, they want to shoot him before he shoots himself so they can walk away, letting the world know that it is they who had the power to kill. Ladies and gentlemen, God doesn't mind you making a decision because you have learned the truth. And rather than live in darkness, you'd rather die. It is better to stand up and let your light so shine that the darkness kills you. In fact, as I say that, it seems like it's the only way. Why would a man just blow his own brains out when you can stand up and do good for others? Even blowing your own brains out is kind of selfish. But when you stand up for others and do good and righteousness for others and they blow your brains out, then God is glorified. God is glorified. So, you don't sanction suicide. Dr. Kevorkian can attest to that. I think he's dead now. Because the powers that be don't want you to have that liberty. You say people used to live 900 years ago. Maybe they had no problems. But they also say there will come a time in our lifetime, maybe not yours or mine, but in the lifetime of humans, when that selfish spirit will get so dominant, that it would be a threat to every human being on the face of the earth. And it would actually attack. The world will be fighting itself. And when it's all gone, everything that you feel is necessary to survive has been destroyed, and you are out here just people with nothing but hope and regret. Maybe you will at that time come together and do things the right way. You see, the spirit inside of me says if everything belongs to God, nothing belongs to us. We didn't bring anything with us. We don't take anything away. So the mind of God recognizes all of our needs and satisfies it. No crime, no violence, no jails and prisons, no war. No war. No war. So, what do? What are you going to do? It's not my business what you do. You are to be you. But the message that I'm giving you is a message that is truth. And I must do more than just share it with you. I must live it amongst you. And if the America does not change and become a beautiful, peaceful place where all Americans, men, women, and children, every race, gay or straight, can be thrilled, happy that they live, then I must be killed as a sign of God's love for all of you. And those of you who are walking in those same shoes, you, by your actions, will demand that America is changed for the same things that I mentioned, or you must be killed. And if you're not doing that, you are a part of the problem. And so when you look and try to find something that says the struggle to end war, you go on the internet and they will give you a statement that says there are no tags to the struggle to end war. No tags for the struggle to end war. What does that mean? that means that when it really gets down to it, all things included, people don't want war. Why? Because people are selfish. But the whole purpose of God in our lives, the whole purpose of the Spirit in our lives is to mature, to grow up, and not be selfish. Because it's not us, it is God. Bye-bye.